So I was recently in the market for a slider, and I was looking at all the popular options. Now, there were certain things that the slider had to do, so it had to fit a certain criteria. One being, it had to be motorized. 2, it had to be dependable and repeatable. And number 3, it had to fit my budget. Anything beyond that was just icing on the cake. One of the most popular sliders on the market today is the Accsoon, I hope I'm saying that correctly, TopRig S60 or S40. And it was one of the sliders that I bought and tried out because there's a lot of hype around it right now. But unfortunately, I had to return it. So let's dive in. So as I said in the intro, and it's not clickbait, I truly did return the TopRig S60, and I'm going to talk all about it today and tell you why. And I ended up actually choosing a completely different slider that I found fit my needs better. Now, by all means, I am not saying that the TopRig is a bad slider. That's not what I'm saying at all. It just didn't fit my needs. So if you are interested in finding out why, I do hope you stick around and watch the rest of this video because I am going to go through a lot of different things, a lot of different details regarding the slider and all the pros and cons that I felt it had, and ultimately why I decided to return it. So let's start off with an unboxing and go over some of the features specifically of the S60. And I also wanted to emphasize the unboxing is very specific to the S60 because, for example, the S40 does not come with the case. So as I said, I have the TopRig S60 model, and the price definitely represents what you're going to get. Now, inside the box, I actually bought additional accessories, so not all of this is actually inside the box. But for example, the support rods, I had to buy these separate. These are an additional $40 purchase that does not come with the S60 or the S40. You do get this foam insert that kind of protects everything and a little housing that protects the motor. The battery is not included. That's something else that I bought separately. And then, of course, you have the slider itself. So again, to summarize, you don't get the rods, you don't get the battery, you don't get the ball head. All you get is the slider for around 400 bucks. A big selling point is having full onboard controls, including setting your waypoints and loop functions. You have a maximum travel distance of 425 millimeters, which is just under 16 inches and 3/4. You'll find neat things all around the slider, like, for example, a 1/4 to 3/8 quick switch, but you're also going to find quarter mounts throughout the entire slider, on both sides for your rods, also on the back so you can add any plate that you want in almost any position that you want. Battery life is truly incredible, and you can expect around 60 hours of battery life. On the back, you're going to find a DC in, 5-volt out, and camera controls. With the ball head, you can set your slider up for target tracking or 120 degrees of panorama. Now, there's no question that the slider is very compact and extremely easy to use and set up with onboard controls that make it very attractive. You can definitely get some great shots. So that's basically all the pros, right? It's very compact. You have a motor that's built into it. It's very well made. I felt it was very high quality. All the materials were great, look great, all that stuff. And overall, I can see why it's a favorite for content creation. Okay, so the slider itself. Let's talk about what happened and the use case that I specifically needed it to do. So I came from a world of manual sliders, and manual sliders have their pros and cons, but they get old pretty quick, and you quickly outlive them. Now, also, I don't have $1 million, so my budget is very specific, and I didn't want to go out and buy something that was, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000, something like that. It needed to be under $1,000 total. So the TopRig, the S60 and the S40, really, by Accsoon, I think I'm saying that right, Accsoon, was very, very attractive. All of the YouTubers out there were raving how it was very compact, very portable, yet gave you great looking results. And for the most part, that is true. Now, the slider is very lightweight, and I had the S60, which was the longer one, but the S40 looks like something that you can just shove in your camera bag and literally take it everywhere with you. And that in itself has a lot of value, right? If you have the gear with you at all times and it's easy to use and take out and all that, you're going to use it more and more. So I can see why a lot of YouTubers really love the S40 and even the S60 because of its portability. You can get some great shots with it for YouTube and social media content. When it came to professional use, and primarily what we work on a lot of different things. We're very versatile, but we get a lot of work in regards to like product commercials, for example, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, things like that, but also full-blown, full-scale, standard content, not necessarily social media format. We also do a lot of short films. We'll do a lot of like scripted commercials, and then we've been doing a lot of corporate commercials lately, and sometimes we even do some music videos. So you can see that there's a lot of stuff going on. And then from time to time, not all the time, but sometimes we do some blue screen work, green screen work, and visual effects, right? So it's extremely important that we have that repeatability. I highly recommend you get a ball head, a decent ball head, so you can use it to its full advantage. Because otherwise, it's very limited, and this really does open up a world of possibilities, but it's not included, which was a little strange. And then there were some features like, for example, you can make some adjustments to pan a certain way, right? And then depending on how you place the slider, you can get some really great shots with that. Let's talk about some of the cons. A big con was there's no support rods included. I really thought that there should be some support rods included. You had to buy them separately. And then when I did buy them separately, they were actually pretty cheaply built. I was surprised. The price that I paid for them didn't reflect the quality, and it didn't reflect the quality of the slider itself. So that was a major con. Let's talk about the motor itself. I love that there is a motor. It's permanently attached to the slider. It's off to the side. It's a very, very quiet motor. So huge pro. Super quiet, even at full speed. It's a lot quieter than another slider that I ended up actually choosing as the winner. And the reason for that is I think they're using a brushless motor. So the pro is it's quiet. The con is the payload isn't that great. It's fine for YouTube and mirrorless cameras, even rigged out mirrorless cameras, but you do have to be mindful of the weight. So you can expect 2.5 kilograms vertically and 4 kilograms horizontally. I mean, that's pretty good, right? But it wasn't like amazing. You might outgrow it, and you can't put like, C cameras, cinema cameras on there. I doubt you can put a C70. Maybe you could. Probably not a fully rigged C70 or C80. So that may be a con. The other benefit to the motor is, though, battery life was fantastic. I mean, it just kept going and going and going. I was really happy with the battery life. The problem that I had with it is it was almost never repeatable. Any little adjustments you made, even if you like cranked it down, it always moved in some capacity. And I'm not talking about like drastic movements. For YouTube content, if you're filming yourself or filming B-roll of you or the product or something like that, or even a corporate interview, it's not going to be that noticeable. You still have to lock things down, but it won't be hugely noticeable. But if you're doing product commercials, green screen work, visual effects, things like that, it is noticeable. It's moving on you. And then the other thing that I found was it wasn't very smooth. When we were doing macro work, when we were using our macro lenses to film product commercials, and a lot of products these days want that really close-up look, it was clear that it wasn't very smooth. It was a little jittery, right? We saw some stepping, and it wasn't always there, but it was clear to me that it was the motor. And there was a certain speed when he dialed it in that it got worse in those macro shots. So I think overall it just didn't have the quality and the features that I was looking for it to be repeatable and give me that stable look while maintaining the payload and, future-proofness that I wanted out of a slider. Another thing that I want to talk about was the app. The app is very, very basic. It's good. It's not a bad app. It's just like, you get certain features or certain control that you would expect and then that's it. There's not like, it's not going to go too deep, right? It's going to give you what you need, and that's basically all that you're going to get. I found it to be very reliable, easy to connect to, all that stuff. It didn't like time out. It was always available when we needed it. It wasn't frustrating to use at all. And a big reason for that is, and a big pro that I really want to stress is that I liked, was the TopRig S60 has physical buttons on the slider. So you can actually set your waypoints on the slider. You don't need the app to get going. And that's a huge, huge pro. Very, very cool. That's something that the Zeppin doesn't have. And I truly miss, right? A really scary thing with apps in general is if the company ever decides that it's not working out and they go out of business, and the only way to control your sliders through the app, what does that mean exactly? Are you gonna basically have a paperweight? Because if there's no longer any app support and it gets deleted or whatever, then you're in big trouble. So having physical buttons is a huge pro. Now here's another con. You can't really actually use it in manual mode. I don't think you should be using it in manual mode. Like, you can physically move it, right? But it doesn't feel right. It feels like the motor's still being engaged. So keep that in mind. If you are going to be using it manually and you don't want to use the electric motor, you're going to be pushing it and stuff like that, it's very limited. You can turn off the motor, of course, and you should. And then it's just, it's loose. There's no dampening at all. And it's basically whatever the belt tension is, which is very little. That's the dampening that you have. So I think manual mode, pushing it yourself, is out the window. That may be a huge con for you. Also, another thing is when you are traveling with it, there's no way of locking it. So it's sliding back and forth unless you like have something to catch the head. That I didn't like that, right? It can get damaged over time. That was something that I was really worried about. It's a great slider. I get the hype, right? Ultimately, it wasn't the slider for me. We took it everywhere, honestly. I did give it a real honest effort. I probably used it straight for 3 weeks on everything, right? We were taking it everywhere. We may not need these shots, but let's test it out. I wanted to make sure it was the right slider for me. At one point we had 2 sliders, right? Because we were testing, multiple sliders and trying to make a decision. And ultimately I decided to return it. So with that being said, I wanted to end the video by talking about who's a slider for. If you are considering it, right, is it the slider for you? I think this is a great slider for content creators, YouTube, channels, social media content creators, things like that want to film themselves and get another perspective. Great slider, very lightweight, easy to travel with, all that good stuff. Great build quality. If you have a cooking channel and you're filming a lot of food content, I think it's a great slider for that as well. But also if you're telling stories, if you're doing a lot of like short films and you're going to be filming subjects, right? And you're not necessarily going to need to get that like exact pinpoint repeatability, it's a great slider. And I also think it's great for like corporate interviews, things like that. Now, if you really need precision and if you really need that repeatability, but you also need it to be modular and grow with you and kind of like take on, a lot of different things and workloads, it's probably not the slider for you. I'm also going to have a video on the Zeppin Micro 3 E1000 and why we decided to go with that slider. And I'm not sure in which order I'm going to release these videos, but I will put a link in the description of both of the videos pointing to each other, right? So you guys can reference them and watch them for yourself. Of course, if you guys have questions or any comments you want to share with me, please leave me a comment below and I'll try to answer them. And like always, guys, if you like this video, please consider subscribing and joining our channel memberships. I'll catch you guys in the next video.